Henry Ford seems like a nice guy, but what most people don't understand is there was a moment where he was literally America's most hated billionaire. And on his 75th birthday, Henry Ford received a gift. It came from Hitler. It was Nazi Germany's highest civilian honor. Ford accepted it. He knew exactly what he was accepting. This is a story they left out in the history books. So what you actually have is he was not born from money. Let's actually go ahead and see where he came from to really understand this man that essentially created the car industry and the middle class. So he was not born into money. He built everything from a barn. Okay? So he was born in Michigan, July 30, 1863. You literally have his father, William Ford, an Irish immigrant farmer. Mother, Mary Ford, died at age 37. They had a farm, 90 acres in Dearborn Township. Inheritance, a farm he never wanted. And he left the farm at 16 and he never looked back. So his early work was he was a machinist apprentice in Detroit in 1879. He was then an engineer in Edison Illuminating Company in 1891. He was chief engineer by 1893, age 30. So he built his first gasoline engine, a kitchen sink, in 1893. And he met Thomas Edison personally in 1896. Edison told him, keep going. He literally did. So Edison's assessment, young man, you have it. A self-contained unit carrying its own fuel. Keep at it. Now the barn is important. Let's actually talk about that. Remember where this started, okay? And then what he actually built in a barn was a Ford quadricycle in 1896. First self-propelled vehicle he built entirely in a shed behind his house, okay? Had to knock down the wall to get it out. The door was too small for the machine and he was 32 years old. He had nothing, okay? He literally had nothing, yet he had everything. So he invented the middle class. No other sentence is more accurate. In 1908, the Model T, and in 1914, the $5 a day. Two decisions that changed American civilization. Okay, check this out. So the Model T introduced, price was $850. Can you imagine if you get a car like that with $850? 1916, price drops to $360. 1924, price drops to $290. Imagine getting a car for $290. Obviously, that was like in back then dollars. Obviously, that $290 back then is like way more now, but just can you imagine? 1927, 15 million Model Ts sold. Market share was 50% of all cars on Earth. A car went from a luxury to a necessity in 16 years. Okay? And the average US wage in 1930 was $2.25. Ford wage in January 5th was $5 a day. Increased 122% overnight. So the condition, submit to company inspectors in your home. The control was total, even outside the factory. So this is the man that you will never really understand what was going in his brain, but what he did literally changed and shaped the world. And what it actually did was workers flooded from across America to literally Detroit population doubled in 10 years. Workers could afford the cars they built. US middle class created almost overnight. Economists still cite this as the birth of consumer capitalism. So he didn't invent the car, he invented how to build everything. So Highland Park, Michigan, 1913, the moving assembly line, the most consequential manufacturing innovation in human history. So you literally have the chassis, 12 hours, engine, optimized axles, time, body, standardized wheels, continuous glass, integrated interior, assembled, complete within 93 minutes, okay? All of this, 93 minutes to build a Model T by 1914, $5 highest daily wage in US, 300% increase in productivity. So what the line did to the workers was repetitive motion, injuries, undocumented, widespread, conversation on the line, forbidden, bathroom breaks, timed and rationed, speed ups, constant, no negotiation, union organizing, ground for immediate firing. The $5 bought their bodies. The line owned their hours. So by 1918, Henry Ford owned the largest manufacturing complex on Earth. $1 billion net worth in 1918, equivalent to $20 billion today. Okay? And then the Ford, what happened is they owned iron mines, newspaper, glassworks, glass factory, railroad, rubber plant, coal mines, airport, airline. Now here's the thing. He owned everything, including a newspaper. These details literally matter. So May 22, 1920, Ford's newspaper published his first anti-Semitic article. It ran for 91 consecutive weeks. And you could see all of the series that he was essentially launching. And the retraction came 7 years later. The books remained in print in Germany through 1945. So Hitler kept Ford's portrait on his office wall for years. This is not disputed. It is documented in multiple independent sources. Okay, it's in Mein Kampf, it's in New York Times Berlin, and it's also in the Congressional Testimony in 1942. I regard Henry Ford as my inspiration, Hitler said to a Detroit reporter in 1931. Now, July 30, 1938, the Grand Cross of the German Eagle, Nazi Germany's highest honor for a foreign civilian, presented by the German Council in Detroit on Ford's 75th birthday by direct order of Adolf Hitler, 5 years after Hitler came to power. 3 months before Kristallnacht, Ford accepted, Ford wore the medal, Ford was photographed wearing it. Okay? Now, here's what his defenders say and why it doesn't hold. He issued his retraction. In 1927, he apologized. The record: retraction was issued under lawsuit pressure. Ford's lawyers privately called it strategic. Defense 2. He employed workers of color at River Rouge when most factories wouldn't. The record: true. In the most dangerous, hottest, lowest paid jobs, Ford also employed Harry Bennett, whose service department beat union organizations. The Battle of the Overpass, 1937, Ford's men beat Walter Reuther and UAW organizers on a public bridge. Photographs exist. In Defense 3, he was a product of his time. Anti-Semitism was common in America then, but the record: President Wilson, Hardin, and Coolidge were his contemporaries. None published 91-week anti-Semitic newspaper series. None received Nazi medals. None were cited by Hitler in Mein Kampf. Being of an era does not mean being represented by it. The defenses exist. The record is longer. So, the Nuremberg trials, 1946, Nazi officers were asked about Ford. Their answers were: I've read Henry Ford's book and became an anti-Semite. The whole of German youth read Henry Ford. Then you also have the chain of influence. Ford prints the international papers, translated to German. Nazi party distributes. Hitler cites Ford in Mein Kampf. Nazi youth leader credits Ford. 6 million were then essentially put through that very heinous act in a very just torturous environment. Now hold everything you just saw and hold this at the same time. The honest accounting of what Ford and Henry Ford actually gave to America, right? You have two. You have the assembly line, $5 workday, Model T, 15 million vehicles, mobility for ordinary people, manufacturing model, right? This column does not shrink either. It just gets bigger and bigger. But you also have the record of harm. You have all of these things. Now, both columns are completely true. No one has ever found a way to make one cancel the other out. This is the actual problem with Henry Ford. Not that he was a villain, but he was kind of both, right? And Henry Ford died in April 7, 1947. America could not agree on what to feel, and it still can't, okay? You literally have the New York Times saying one thing, and you also have the Telegraphic Agency saying the exact same thing, but oppositely. Okay, both obituaries ran on the same day about the same man. Neither was wrong. So, America has a Henry Ford problem it is never solved because the solution requires holding two things at once, and we are not good at that. You have the reckoning approach and you have the eraser approach. The question is not whether Ford was good or evil. The question is whether America can look at its builders clearly, because every country has a Ford, a person whose achievements built the nation and whose beliefs stained it. The test is what you do with that statue. The test is what you teach the children, okay? And he created the middle class. He invented how everything gets made. He also published all of these propaganda for 91 weeks. He accepted a medal from Hitler. You said in Mein Kampf, his writings were acknowledged in Nuremberg. He died in 1947. The Ford is still the best-selling vehicle in America. Every year, millions of Americans buy a Ford. Most of them know the car. Almost none of them know the man. And the question is, should they?